Good afternoon and welcome to CanadianAgMarkets.com. My name is Brian Comeault from Ireland, Comeault, Lafoy, and here is what is happening in ag markets today. Closing prices today, we have canola up $14.30, once again testing that important $680 futures level. It settled today at 679.70, just a hair off the highs of where it was today. Minneapolis wheat is down two and a quarter at 614. Kansas wheat took a bit of a spill, down a little over a nickel and a half at 558 and a quarter. Chicago wheat down 2 cents at 550 and a quarter. Soybeans up four and a half cents at 1046. Corn is down six and three quarter at 483 and three quarter. And at the time of this recording, the Canadian dollar was trading at about 70 to 40. All right, let's get into what is going on. Here's the canola chart. And it's a very interesting chart, I find. Just wanted to point out a couple things. We saw a test on Friday of the high right near $680 or $690 on the July. I'm looking at the July now because most of the open interest and volume is in the July. The May is a contract that is fading. As you can see, that's a bit of a technical resistance level. So we may continue to bump up against that in the near term. Up here is a resistance level at about 700 to 710, or just a little over $710. I know there's a lot of analysts calling for canola to rally to that. But in our commentary, we did suggest that there is a possibility of a retraction. Today's action actually looks like the retraction has already happened. Very strong day today. Very good. It didn't cover the highs or break the highs from yesterday. Obviously, we would have liked to have seen that to be very positive. And as soon as we break to new highs, that also is very positive. But, there are some technical signals down here. This trend line is an important one. It's very aggressively rising. So we may see some volatility in the next few days as it tests that trend line. Of course, we have the 20-day moving average down here and the 200-day moving average down here. The 20-day moving average, as you can see, has been aggressively moving higher. That's a positive sign as well. I still like this chart. I do think that there is possibility here for some consolidation and maybe further retraction. But if there is support in the market, which today it definitely looked like there was support in the market, we could continue to see strength in this market. Here is the Kansas City wheat. I want to show this first because it is seeing some weakness today. We are testing some lows here down near 555. Those aren't we have a double test of this bottom here. So at this point, this looks like it should hold, although the market action since the middle of March has been quite negative, despite some of the other things we'll talk about in this video around crop ratings. So this chart does look a little bit vulnerable. It can't seem to break above the 20-day moving average here, which is in decline. So it is quite likely that we will see this, move to lower lows. This is normally the time of year that we do see a spike in, or not necessarily a spike, but some positive action in wheat markets as the growing season progresses. But there just isn't enough fundamental or future fundamental information to really push this outside of the ranges, although it could push it to some new lows or some new recent lows here in the short term. Minneapolis wheat's faring a little bit better. Again, the USDA reported low acres for spring wheat. Canada's spring wheat acreage increase might offset some of that. So again, we're quite range bound here in Minneapolis wheat. The basis is doing some of the work. Elevators are aggressively looking for some wheat, particularly for old crop, and putting some good bids out there that are, at least turn a profit on most of the calculations on profitability that we make. But it still is struggling, but doing better than we do see with the winter wheat classes. Here's winter wheat crop conditions. They did fall. I'm just going to confirm here. They did fall 2 percentage points from 45 good to excellent this week they fell 2 percentage points from 47 to 45 this week. The average is 43. So again, the market is kind of looking at this and saying, well, we're still above average. It's falling. It normally falls at this time of year. Everything is A-OK. The one caveat to that is that Kansas saw some pretty big declines, particularly last week, week over week. This week, a little bit more of a muted decline, 2 percentage points again. So Kansas still above average, but it was in decline. Here's a map of what that looks like. Some of the declines came here in the Midwest here on some of the soft wheat states. So, again, just the world is not focusing right now on winter wheat crop conditions, particularly falling winter wheat crop conditions that are still above average. Obviously there are bigger fish to fry on the trade front and those kinds of things. So I think the market is looking at some of these things and putting it in the back seat, if you will. Just to kind of update you a little bit on other things. The crop planting progress in the U.S. spring wheat is 17%. I think it's a little bit above average for this time of year. Again, a lot of that spring wheat is grown in some of those northwestern states, like Washington. So they're above average. South Dakota is above average. We're still about average for Minnesota and North Dakota, which grows the bulk of the hard red spring wheat. So I guess normal conditions there as far as that goes. We are seeing soybean crop progress a little ahead of schedule as well. 8% planted at this point versus an average of 5. No crop conditions yet released on those things. And the corn planting progress is also ahead of average a little bit. 12% planted right now versus 10%. Still no crop conditions on that. All right, I have to pay the bills here before we move forward, but if you like this commentary and our analysis, our subscribers get much more in-depth and detailed information from us here at Ireland, Comeault, Lafoy. We do a weekly report at the end of the week. We do ad hoc hot takes. Say that 10 times fast throughout the week. If important things happen, which they have been doing so over the last 6-8 weeks. And we do a morning report to get you started for the day. These include not only the hard facts of the market, but also our opinions and actionable strategies to help you market your grain throughout the year. You can subscribe to all our reports, all our daily commentaries, all our ad hoc market updates for only $99 Canadian a month. That's less than $1,200 a year, which is an excellent value compared to other less comprehensive market letters elsewhere. Again, that's $99 Canadian per month. You can cancel anytime. Go to CanadianAgMarkets.com to subscribe, and we'll put that link in the description as well. All right, moving on a little bit. I just kind of wanted to show a little bit where some of the production on some important commodities is located. I'm going to turn on trusty laser pointer here. This is rapeseed in the EU because I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the findings that the MARS report from the EU released today stated. Central northern France, 21%, or France accounts for 21% of the rapeseed crop. Germany, another 21%. So, a big chunk of the European rapeseed market is located here in northern France and northern Germany as it moves into eastern Europe as well. So this is a good, important area for rapeseed production. As far as wheat goes, Germany has a lot of it, 18%, France 28%. Again, most of it's centered in the northern area. And then as we get towards the Black Sea, Romania, Bulgaria as well. And of course, Ukraine grows a significant amount of wheat. Russia grows a significant amount of wheat, particularly around the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea in that kind of southeastern area of Russia. So here's where there are some concerns according to MARS or the European Union. As you can see, the northeastern part of France is seeing some concern. Almost all of Germany is seeing some concern. However, the northern areas are of most concern at this point. And again, that's heavy into the rapeseed and wheat area. And then as we moved into Eastern Europe, it's a little bit... it is a little bit more concerning as well. These areas are at least 50% below average rainfall. Again, with elevated temperatures, kind of speeding up crop development and soil moisture depletion. The spring sown crops are struggling to emerge, and winter crops yield or risk some yield loss without some rain. Eastern Europe is drier than usual. Eastern Romania and northeastern Bulgaria, only 60% of normal rainfall since the 1st of March. Rapeseed right now in those areas is flowering and vulnerable, so that might be important to our canola markets. Turkey, which is a major wheat growing area, is also seeing some impact. Seen 70% of normal precipitation. March was the driest since 1990 in Turkey. Crops reliant on, let's see here, Ukraine. Eastern Ukraine remains under a long-term drought affecting crop emergence and growth. Western Ukraine is faring a little bit better, but April rainfall is still needed for sustained development. So, not everything is hunky dory in Europe and in Eastern Europe and in Russia. We are seeing some concern there. Could be part of the reason that we are seeing some strength in rapeseed. Unfortunately, it's not giving us a whole lot on the wheat market front at this time. Staying inside of that Ukraine and EU, it looks like Putin says he is open to direct peace talks with Ukraine. It sounds like he reached out uh, and is open and is asking Zelensky to come to the table for some talks. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know what he said, she said kind of thing. Ukraine said that they're ready to hold talks with Russia. However, they want a ceasefire in place. They want the fighting to stop before those talks happen. So Zelensky's digging in his heels a little bit and asking for the fighting to stop before he comes to the table. Getting into weather here, we are seeing, some weather into the Midwest and the soy and corn growing areas. Again, why we might not be seeing, too much strength in the corn and soybean markets, and also in some of the winter wheat markets. The forecast here is, in Kansas, and that might be why we are seeing Kansas futures decline in the face of reductions in crop conditions. Is that the forecast is looking good for Kansas in the coming few days, as well as Oklahoma and southern Nebraska. The areas in Colorado are still a little bit at risk, but there's lots of areas here in the Midwest that the soft red winter wheat crop is also going to get a lot of rain. Now, some of these areas have received excessive rains, but most of the soft red winter wheat that's grown in the north, those rains were absent for those. So not as much concern there. On the Canadian front, this is a percentage of average precipitation in the last 30 days. Environment Canada hasn't started posting growing season percent of average precipitation yet, which usually starts April 1st, or they start calculating it as of April 1st. They release the maps a little bit later, but here's the last 30 days. So this would take us, say, into the 20th, 25th of March, something like that. You can see that there's some deficiencies in moisture, particularly in southern Manitoba. That's where I'm located. I definitely am noticing that right now. That stretches into a lot of Saskatchewan. The one area that's been spared is kind of the very western part of Saskatchewan and some of the growing areas of Alberta. So those might be looking a little better than normal at this point in time. As far as the forecast goes, southern Manitoba is expected to get some precipitation here, although these purple areas here, we're talking 1.75 to 3 inches, so not heavy rains. And that's just the forecast based on the GFS model, and that's an accumulated precipitation as well, which is 7 days out. So what I've kind of been noticing is that the precipitation tends to be lower than what is forecast in the last little while. Almost, nothing or very scant precipitation through much of the areas of Saskatchewan that likely need it. So very dry there. I mean, some of these heaviest pockets here, the 7.5 millimeters, that's about an equivalent of about 1/3 of an inch of rain. So not a lot coming there either. So not a lot of reprieve in the forecast for Canada at this point, but a little bit more for southern Manitoba. All right, that is all we have for you today. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you got something out of this. Subscribe if you have not already, and we'll see you again tomorrow.